appreciate and enjoy the entire expo again. So, that said, I would like to introduce to you Howard Lyman. Howard is a fourth-generation family farmer and cattle rancher in Montana for almost 40 years. Howard Lyman's background of personal experience with chemically-based agricultural production methods propelled him into writing Mad Cowboy, a book about mad cow disease and the unsustainable, ecologically disastrous farming methods that contribute to the proliferation of the disease. Now a vegan, Howard's goal is to see a producer-consumer alliance controlling public policy decisions in North America. He is the founder of Voice for a Viable Future, an organization designed to educate people about organic, sustainable agriculture and the dangers of the current methods of food production. He has a lot to share with his usual good sense of humor. I welcome Howard Lyman. Please help me welcome him to the stage.
My name is Howard Lyman. I'm a fourth-generation farmer, rancher, feedlot operator. I travel around the country about 300 days a year, about 100,000 miles. I talk to people about the proper amount of animal products to have in their diet as 0. People look at me and say, wait a minute. Fourth-generation farmer, rancher, feedlot operator, talking about not eating animal products, must be smoking the #1 crop out of California. The only test for the Supreme Court that I can pass. But what I want to talk to you tonight about is how blind we are. The famous German philosopher Goethe said, "We hide everything in plain sight." Just stop and think about it. 1 out of every 2 Americans dying today are dying from heart disease. 1 out of 3 have cancer. 1 out of 4 will die of cancer. Diabetes is growing astronomically. 30% of Americans today are overweight or obese. Every one of those things directly related to our fork. But if you turn on the television set, do you ever see nightly news talk about a new variety of carrots? Do you ever hear about, we came up with a new onion packed with phytotoxins, keep you from getting cancer? No, you never hear that. I mean, but just think you can get the new purple pill. Now, nobody in the world knows what the purple pill is for, but you need to go to your doctor and request a prescription so you can get the purple pill. You don't even know what sickness you got, but they got a pill for it. Let's stop and take a look at what's going on right now in the United States of America. You know, 1990, I decided that I was going to go out and talk to the American people about a problem that I saw in the future. I was the first person who was talking to people about bovine spongiform encephalopathy. Now, if you can say that, or you can say mad cow disease, but in 1990, people thought I was the one that had holes in my brain because they had never heard of mad cow disease. But the minute that I went on the Oprah Winfrey Show, the minute I shared with a few million Americans that we were grinding up cows and feeding them to cows, that we were scraping up roadkill, deer, elk, possum, raccoons, grinding them up and feeding them to cows, that we were taking euthanized pets, dogs and cats. The city of Los Angeles alone, 200 tons of dogs and cats a month are being ground up and fed to our food animals. You know, I looked over and there was Oprah. Her eyes were as big as saucers. I knew I had her. And Oprah looked at the guy that was on the show from the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and she said, Dr. Weber, are we feeding cows to cows? I'll never forget what he had to say. He said, well, you know, there's a limited amount of that going on. And there, as I know, 95% of the cattle fed in factory feedlots today are eating the remains of other animals. And then the next words that came out of Oprah's mouth got us sued. She said, that just stops me cold. I will never again eat a burger. Now, she didn't say to the millions of people, you shouldn't eat meat. She didn't say to the millions of people that were watching, I think meat's contaminated. She never said that. She just said, that stops me cold. I will never eat a burger. How many of you here think we have the right of free speech? That she should have the right to say, I don't think I'll ever again eat a burger? Well, do you realize that the cattlemen sued Oprah, Harpo Production, and myself for $180 million? Now, I'll never forget my wife, when it came up in the news that I was being sued, she, well, I didn't think it was important enough to share with her. She said, how much are we being sued for? And I said, well, not much. She said, what is not much? And I said, well, $180 million. She said, what was that? I said, $180 million. She said, we don't have $180 million. I said, see, it's not important. But she said, that will encompass everything we have, right? Well, yeah, but I mean, we may win. Well, we were sued for the cattle industry 6 years. 6 years we were in court. We won 4 times. And they kept appealing it and filing new suits. Ask yourself the question, why was it? Why was it important to the cattle industry to keep us tied up in for court, to spend millions of dollars when everything that we said on the show was true? It's all about the fact that they don't want people to know the truth. They know what's wrong with the food that we're eating today. They know where obesity is coming from. They know what's happening to the kids in the schools. Do you think they care? Not one iota. What they want is to try and get their money on their hands on enough money with the idea was, I know what's wrong, but I won't eat it. I'll probably feed it to my family, but I won't eat it. Fact of it is, they're just like the people that worked in the tobacco industry, thinking that the money was much more important than the fact that every time somebody smoked a cigarette, they took 11 minutes off of their life. What we are doing today in industrial agriculture is absolutely, totally non-sustainable. It's not good for you. It's not good for your family. It's not good for the environment. And Lord knows it's not good for the animals. So let's stop and take a look. Let's look back. You know, we have a lot of speakers here today that are talking about we need to get on board. We need to educate people. We need to move forward. And you ask yourself, ooh, is this insurmountable? I can remember I worked in Washington, D.C. on Capitol Hill for 5 years. And I said to my friends up there, I said, you know, this game is rigged. The deck is marked. We will never win in Washington, D.C. And they looked at me and they said, well, what are you going to do? Go talk to the people? And I said, yeah. They said, you're never going to get half of the people to do anything. I said, we don't need half. 80% of the people are brain dead. They're part of the herd. They're following nose to tail. And when you follow nose to tail, there's only one thing you ever see in front of you. Our job is not to educate the 80% of the people that are brain dead. Our job is to get half of the people that are still thinking to decide which way they're going to go. And when they decide which way they're going to go, the 80% will follow. And so I want to talk to you today about how quickly that can be done. Just stop and think about, what was this country like 100 years ago? Do you ever stop and think how much we've changed in 100 years? 100 years ago, people lived to be about 47 years old. About 95% of all of the children were born at home 100 years ago. 100 years ago in the United States of America, less than 6% of the people had a high school diploma. 100 years ago, less than 8% of the homes had a telephone. 100 years ago, 12% of the homes had a bathtub. 100 years ago, the average wage was 22 cents an hour. To earn $2,000 a year was an astronomical income. 100 years ago, there were only 120 miles of paved roads in the United States of America. There were less than 8,000 cars in America 100 years ago. 100 years ago, a city in Nevada named Las Vegas was inhabited by 30 people. If we can have changes like that to where we need to go, we can do it. I became a vegan in 1990. I can remember the only reason I became a vegan is because I couldn't spell vegetarian. Back in 1990, you could actually get on an airplane and order a vegan meal. Now, you would never get it, but you could order it. Today, you get on an airplane, you can't order any meal, and you won't get it anyway. There's nothing available. We've come a long way in 100 years. Do you ever wonder what it was like when you go to the airport and they drop you off at the terminal? What a hell of a name. Getting on an airplane from a terminal? That's like a doctor having a business that's called a practice. Anyway, I used to order a vegan meal. When it never showed up, I would say to the stewardess, I ordered a vegan meal. She would jump back in terror, thinking I had some communicable disease. But the fact of it is, today, you can go to a truck stop. You can go to any truck stop in America today and go in and tell them you're a vegan, and they will know what it is. Now, they don't have a clue that they have things in their restaurant that they could feed a vegan. You have to help them out, You go in, you say, I'm a vegan. They say, yeah, we heard about you kind of guys. I said, listen, I'm the guy that's got my name in your bathroom wall. Don't tell me you haven't heard about me. I want a vegan meal. Oh, we don't have anything like that. I said, well, wait a minute. You have a banana? Yeah, we got a banana. We heard of Doug Graham. Yeah, we... Okay, I said, have you got oatmeal? They said, yeah, we got oatmeal, but we make it with milk. I say, you're out of water? You can make oatmeal with water? Yeah, let's have oatmeal with water. I have a banana. I'd like a glass of orange juice. And, when they bring it to you and you pour the orange juice on the oatmeal, they look at you like, oh, what in the world are you doing? And I say, do you have a separate compartment in your stomach for the different things you put in, or does it all get together, We've come a long way. We've come a long way because right now, for example, we have an organic garden on the lawn of the White House. Well, you know, the fitness director at the White House happens to be a friend of mine. We served together for a number of years as board members of EarthSafe. And he called me up and he said, what in the world can we do with this administration to further organic agriculture? I said, do you ever think about putting a garden in the lawn? He says, that sounds like a good idea. And what do we have today? We have a garden in the lawn of the White House. You know what seed sales are up to this year? Seed sales in the United States are up about 800% in 2009 over 2008. Don't tell me that we can't achieve what we're about. I believe right now we're on top of the mountain. We can go down the mountain on one side or we can go down on the other. It's our job right now, the people that get it, to basically look at it and say, we're going to go down the right side of the mountain. We're going to talk to people about a plant-based diet, but only when they ask us about it. You know, it doesn't do any good to go to somebody and point at them and say, let me talk to you about a vegan diet. Their eyes roll up. You can hear their ears shut. They don't want to hear any part of it. But you know, you go out with a group to dinner, first thing you want to do is you want to order first. Order first. The wait person comes around and you look at her and say, ma'am, I'm a vegan. And I'm a vegan that I have some serious problems. If I eat any dairy products, I'm going to fall over dead. I'm going to die here. And my wife absolutely requires me to eat in restaurants that have deep pockets because if that happens, she's going to sue. I'm telling you what, you've got that lady's attention. But you also have the attention of all of the people that you're dining with. And you look and all of a sudden they're picking up the menu and they're looking at it again because they were going to order a cheeseburger or some crazy thing like that with cheese on it. And all of a sudden they're looking at it and they say, well, a little dairy won't bother you, will it? How many of you in here think a little dairy may bother you a little? How about the study that was done at Cornell University? I'm not a big fan of animal studies, but they had this study where they had 100 rats. The rats were genetically engineered to have cancer. They didn't know what they were going to use them for. They had no idea, and all they wanted to do was feed them and keep them alive as cheaply as possible. Now, Cornell University happens to be a dairy school. They have a lot of dairy products. 78% of the protein in dairy products happens to be casein. They had a lot of casein, a lot of protein. They decided they were going to feed these rats a diet of 20% casein, just keep them alive until they could figure out what to do with them. And lo and behold, all of the rats died before they got to be 100 weeks of age. That shouldn't happen. So they decided they'd get another 100 rats and they try it out again and they fed them a ration with 20% casein and all of those rats died. So they got another 100 rats and they took a third of them, put them on the same ration, they died. They took a third of them, they put them on a 20% plant-based ration, and they all lived and thrived. And they took the other third and they put them on a 15% casein diet, and 2/3 of them died. And then they went in the laboratory and they took cancer cells and they put them in association with casein, and the casein would stimulate the cancer cells to grow. And they would remove the casein and the cancer cells would stop growing. They would reintroduce the casein and the cancer cells would grow again. And Dr. T. Colin Campbell, in my opinion, the most preeminent nutritional researcher alive on the planet, the man that did the largest the dietary study ever done in the history of the world, the China Project, he says in his opinion, animal protein stimulates the growth of cancer. We have 1 out of every 3 Americans today with cancer, 1 out of 4 dying of cancer, and what are we doing? We have an absolute explosion of cancer in the United States of America. Casein is 78% of the protein in dairy. Is there any redeeming feature of dairy? I was raised on the largest dairy farm in the state of Montana. And I will tell you today, in my opinion, the first thing that you should take out of your diet is dairy. Why in the world that you would ever want to put something in your body that has the capability of stimulating cancer cell growth? Every person sitting in this room today, every person in this room today has cancer cells in your body. No problem. Our body was designed to deal with that. The day we were born, we were given a system, the human immune system, that has a little shovel. And that little shovel is to throw out the cancer cells in our body. And it does it very efficiently until we start multiplying them astronomically by the things that we're putting into our diet. Don't let anybody give you this idea that it just happens. I don't know why it is. Some people get cancer and others don't. I guess it's just a luck of the draw. Should I ask Thomas here? We have a doctor. Does he believe that cancer is the luck of the draw? Do you believe that the curing of cancer is all you need to do is get the right doctor? All you need to do is get the correct chemotherapy. What could be better than to take your body and use something that was designed to kill you and call it chemotherapy, and it's a way of saving you? It's crazy. It isn't happening accidentally. We're digging that grave with our own fork. Well, I was raised in Montana, Great Falls, Montana. My hometown newspaper put my picture on the front page, and it said, Montana's most famous vegetarian. I picked up the phone and I called him up and I said, why don't you tell it the way it is? Montana's only vegetarian. And they said, oh no, we got one of you kind of guys at the paper. We know there are 2. I go to my 50th class reunion. I walk into my 50th class reunion. I weigh exactly what I did 50 years ago when I graduated. I walk in. 1/3 of my classmates have already died. You never saw so many canes, crutches, and walkers in all your life. And everybody's standing around talking about their last operation, their favorite doctor, where you can get the cheapest meds. But nobody wants to talk to me about my diet until I go to the bathroom. I walk into the bathroom. Some clown comes up to me and said, you ever sneak out and get a burger? You ever go to McDonald's? Let me ask you this. Are you prepared to answer that question in the bathroom? Have you thought it through? I was ready. I turned around and looked him in the eye and said, by the way, does your poop float? Be prepared. Be ready. But here, I was raised in Montana. I only knew one vegetarian in my entire life. And her name was Atlantis. Can you imagine how strange that was? Here I was, a football player, one of the first 300-pound football players in North America. I never found an animal product I wouldn't stuff down my throat. I wanted to go out in the field and knock the guy down. I quit playing football. I got well over 300 pounds. My blood pressure is sky high. My cholesterol is over 300. I sit down and have lunch and my nose would bleed. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I knew I was in trouble. I was thinking about becoming a vegetarian. Couldn't spell it, but I figured I could do it. But I sure wasn't going to tell anybody about it. I became a closet vegetarian. For 1 year, I'm a closet vegetarian. I lose some weight. My blood pressure goes down slightly. My cholesterol goes down. And I thought, wow, if I can do that being the world's worst vegetarian, just think what I could do if I became a vegan. And I could spell vegan. I became a vegan. I lost 140 pounds. My blood pressure went from sky high to normal. My cholesterol from 300 to 135. I'm telling you what, I wanted to tell everybody about being a vegan. And I would go out and say, let me tell you about my diet. You know, the eyes roll up, the ears slam shut. I even picked up the phone and called my mother-in-law. I called my mother-in-law and I said to her, hey, Marge, I want to tell you about my new diet. And over the phone, I heard it go click. I can remember looking up and saying, thank you, Lord. But I thought it was probably too straight of an issue, and so I called her back and I said, hey, Marge, why don't you and Ralph come to our house for Thanksgiving dinner? And she said to me, you won't have turkey. I said, I'll tell you what. If you come to our house on Thanksgiving, I guarantee you we'll have turkey. She agreed to come. She knew she had me eating crow. Thanksgiving Day, my mother-in-law came in the house like a rocket. Immediately to the oven. She jerked open the oven. No turkey. She checked the refrigerator. No turkey. To be safe, she checked the dryer. No turkey. And she said to me, you guaranteed we'd have turkey. I took my mother-in-law by the hand. Fortunately, I was wearing my gloves. I took her to the back door. I opened up the back door, and in the backyard, I had a live turkey. I gave my mother-in-law an axe. Not a real good idea to give your mother-in-law an axe. And I told her, I said, if you want that turkey, you got to kill it. Now, this story's got good news and bad news. Good news is that turkey's still alive. The bad news, so is my mother-in-law. But we've got to wake up. We've got to see what's going on around us. We have to do some reading. Brings us up to the pitch of the day. I'm selling my book now. I want you. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that to you. Okay. You got to come to the table. Come to the table. I'll sell you a book. This is not about selling books. This is about the future of our children and grandchildren. This is about being able, when somebody taps you on the shoulder and asks you why in the world it is that you're one of the V people, that you can answer the question why. And this is not about looking somebody in the eye and saying, sit down, I want to give you the 3.5-hour dissertation on why you ought to be a plant-eating person. That's not the case. You know, you want to stop and look at it and you ask yourself the question, why in the world are we involved in eating the way we do? Are we interested in living longer and healthier? Sure. Are we interested in planet Earth so our children and grandchildren have the ability to live in the future? Do we want to be able to look in the eyes of an animal and be able to say to him, what I think is the most important thing in the world in my life today is to be able to say that no animal has to die for me to live? Those are the things you want to be able to tell the person that asks you why you're one of the V people. I want to live longer, and I want to live healthier. I want to put the fuel in my body that it was designed to use. I'm not interested in having cancer, heart disease, diabetes, or obesity. I'm not interested in looking in the eyes of my child and my grandchildren and saying to them, I don't give a damn about your future, because I do. And all of that should take you about 35 seconds. And then have sense enough to shut your mouth and look them in the eye. What are they going to say? Well, I've really been working on a good case of cancer for a long time. I have a doctor friend of mine that has just bought a new lakefront property, and I want to make sure that he performs a good open heart operation on me so he can make his payments. I want to make sure that I'm responsible for as many animals dying as possible. I don't give a damn if there's a planet here for our children or grandchildren. Are they going to say that? They're not going to say that. Your job is not to turn that person into a hardcore vegan. Your job is to plant a seed. And you know, if you tell them that about your health, the health of the animals, the health of the planet, no matter what they do the rest of their life, you have planted that in their mind. Great Falls, Montana, there were 10 of us, all farmers, that all got together and we played cards. Out of those 10, I'm the only one that is a plant eater. Out of those 10, I'm the only one that hasn't had heart disease, cancer, or died, and 7 out of my 10 friends have already died. Stop and go to your class reunion. It isn't about the people that show up. Count the ones on there that have died. Why in the world should people be dying in the prime of their life? It's because they're digging their grave with their fork. There are presenters here that are just phenomenal. There are people here that can tell you things in 1 hour that might take you years to learn. Why don't we take advantage of what they have here? There's not one person here that should not go home without having an armload of books, without having an armload of DVDs, with having all the information that you can. How much time are you going to take while you're here to talk to somebody like Thomas? Can you imagine if you go and sit down in his office? I don't know how much he's going to charge you, but I'll guarantee you if you go sit down and talk to him right now, it'll be free. If he charges you, tell him to send the bill to me. I won't pay it, but he can send it. But what an amazing opportunity that we have of arming ourselves with the information to be able to go and do what it is that can help our friends, our family. My wife and I just moved to Ellensburg, Washington. Ellensburg, Washington happens to be the Washington state capital of the Washington Cattlemen's Association. They just love me. We're really close. Well, we get there, and my wife is a quilter. She is a very, very good quilter. I have a daughter that has won the National Quilting Championship. So there's some good quilting genes in the family, and then where there's a group called Material Girls. They interview people, and if they find them acceptable, they're invited to join. But my wife is a hardcore vegan. Ellensburg, Washington, the biggest event is the Labor Day Rodeo, the Cattlemen's Association, and here's this lady, good quilter, but she's a vegan. and nobody really understands what do you do with a vegan. If you invite them for lunch, what do you feed them? Do you go down to the supermarket and buy the vegan takeout dinner? Well, they thought they'd take a chance, and they invited her, and they found that whatever they had for lunch, if it was vegan, she would eat it, and if it wasn't, she wouldn't. And she told them, she said, "Don't worry about it. I'm not going to die from missing one meal." And all of a sudden, they found that she's really a super person. Only made one mistake in her life. And she took me on as a reclamation project. It's been a little longer than what she thought. It's going on 42 years now. But anyway, she ends up being invited to join the Material Girls. And do you realize today, half of the people in that group now are vegetarian or vegan? Of that group, a fourth of them have turned their husbands into vegetarians or vegans. And so we decided that we would start the Ellensburg Vegetarian Society. We reserved a phone booth. And believe it or not, now we have over 40 people at the monthly potluck that show up. The newspaper actually carries the notice of our event. Every restaurant in Ellensburg, Washington today has a vegan option except for one. And it is the Cattleman's Steakhouse. Do you remember Rush Limbaugh? I'm sure that some of you have heard of him. You know, there's the one person in the world that I hope continues to eat meat. But the fact of it is, I don't. You like him too, huh? You know, all I ask you today is meet the great presenters that are here. Talk to them. Glean their ideas. Buy their material. Store it away. See how you can use it at home. This is not about telling people what they ought to do. This is about doing what needs to be done. People learn more from seeing what people do than they ever learn from hearing what they have to say. You sit down with a group and order a vegan meal at a restaurant first, I guarantee you everybody will pick up the menu and look at it again before they order. When you don't have to say to them, you know, this is what I eat. They're going to come around and ask you what you're going to eat. If you just try to tell them what you're going to eat, I guarantee you they don't care. They don't care. Because you know what it is when you say to somebody about what they ought to eat? What you're saying to them is your mother did not love you. That's what it's translated to be. Because they eat today what their mother taught them to eat, and they knew that their mother loved them, and so there's no doubt in the world that if I'm telling them they ought to change their diet, I'm saying to them, your mother is no damn good. But if they come up and tap you on the shoulder and say, how come you're a V person? You can handle it two ways. You can say to them, well, let me tell you what's wrong with your diet. Wrong way to go. You say to them, let me tell you what a damn fool I was. Now they want to believe that. Can you believe at one time I weighed 370 pounds? Oh yeah, I believe that. Yeah, you're not very smart. Would you believe at one time my cholesterol was over 300? Yeah, I can believe that. There's only 290, so they're feeling good about themselves. You know, my blood pressure was sky high. Well, mine is only moderate. Of course, I'm on drugs. But if you say to them, let me tell you what a damn fool I was, they will listen. and you tell them what you did to save yourself. It's nothing about what they do. It's nothing what's wrong with their problem. You're not saying anything about their mother, and they're engaged, and they're looking, and they're going to take that information, and they're going to make some changes in their life. But you're only going to get them to tap you on the shoulder and talk about digging a grave with a fork by the way you lead your life. You know, you go home and you actually say to them, wow, this last weekend I had an amazing opportunity. I was in a room with hundreds of people that were just as damn dumb as I was. You know, they made changes. Well, did you learn how to cook anything? Absolutely. I came home with a wonderful recipe on how to cook a raw banana. Now, I signed up for a group of recipes online, and I'm going to get the recipes on cooking raw apples. We may even get around to raw cherries, strawberries, blueberries. Just let people understand that you enjoy your life, that you care about where you're going, you care about the environment. For me, the greatest joy in the world is to drive down the road and see a herd of cows. And I stop and I go over to the fence and I say to them, "Moo! Moo! Come on over here, I want to talk to you." I'm a hardcore vegan, and those old cows, they look at me, and they will come and commune with me because they know whether you're eating their kind or not. And the look in the eyes of those animals, to be able to go to your doctor and have a physical, and he can't find out anything wrong with you so he can call you back to make his next payment, that's worthwhile. If I can do it, anybody can do it. Nobody came further from the issue than I did. One time I had 7,000 head of cattle, and here I am, a hardcore vegan. It's the best thing I ever did for myself. And so I say to you today, you have a mission, and the mission is from me. Fill your mind up with facts. Meet good folks. Commit yourself not to become a hardcore vegan, but to do better tomorrow than what you did today. To see what really works. Talk to Thomas and ask him how many of his cancer patients are walking out because of surgery or chemotherapy or some new fancy drug, or how many of them are walking out because of carrot juice. You know, we have an opportunity to change the world. We have to do it in this generation, or we will be so far down the slippery side there will be no future for our children and grandchildren. Your job is not to do everything. Your job is to do everything you can do. And I have faith that there are enough people in this room at this conference to change the world. And Lord knows we need to change it, because the people that are clutching after all of the nickels and dimes, they don't have a clue that they're the next one in line to give up their lives. So join with me. Let's change the world, and let's do it one bite at a time. Thank you very much.